On a cold winter night in New Hampshire, a young nursing student crashed her car on a lonely stretch of road. Several people saw her after the crash. She spoke with witnesses. She appeared uninjured. Police were called immediately, but by the time officers arrived, she had disappeared. No one saw where she went. No one knows what happened next. More than 20 years later, investigators are still trying to answer a question that has become one of the greatest mysteries in American criminal history. How does a person vanish in a matter of minutes? This is the story of Maura Murray, a case filled with strange decisions, unanswered questions, and a timeline so confusing that even today, nobody can agree on what truly happened. To understand the mystery, we need to begin long before the crash, because the events that unfolded on February 9th, 2004, may have started days earlier. At first glance, Maura Murray seemed like an ordinary college student. She was 21 years old, athletic, intelligent, driven. Friends and family described her as determined and independent. Growing up in Massachusetts, she excelled in sports and academics. She later attended West Point before transferring to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she studied nursing. By all appearances, she had a promising future ahead of her. But beneath the surface, things were becoming complicated. The months leading up to her disappearance were marked by stress. There were academic pressures, relationship challenges, personal struggles, and several incidents that investigators would later scrutinize in extraordinary detail. Looking back, every decision she made during those final days would become important, because after she disappeared, even the smallest detail seemed capable of changing the entire case. The first signs of trouble appeared only days before she vanished. On February 5th, 2004, Maura was working a security job on campus. During her shift, she reportedly became extremely upset after receiving a phone call. A supervisor later found her visibly distressed. When asked what was wrong, she reportedly said only a few words. "My sister." What exactly had upset her remains unclear. Investigators would later examine this incident repeatedly. Some believed it indicated emotional turmoil. Others believed it was unrelated, but it was one of several unusual events that occurred shortly before her disappearance. Then came another incident. In the early hours of February 8th, just one day before she vanished, Maura was involved in a car accident in Massachusetts. She was driving her father's vehicle when she crashed into a guardrail. Fortunately, she was not seriously injured. The vehicle suffered damage, but she walked away. To some investigators, this accident may have added stress to an already difficult situation. To others, it was simply an unfortunate coincidence. What mattered was what happened next, because less than 24 hours later, Maura would leave campus and begin a journey that nobody fully understands. On February 9th, 2004, she started making preparations that suggested she intended to leave for several days. She emailed her professors. She contacted her employer. She explained that there had been a death in her family and that she would be gone for about a week. But there was a problem. No one in her family had died. The explanation was false. Why would she invent a family death? Where was she planning to go? And why did she want people to believe she would be unavailable? Those questions remain unanswered. As investigators later reconstructed her movements, they discovered additional clues. She searched for directions. She looked into accommodations in northern New England. She made phone calls regarding possible lodging. These actions suggested planning. This wasn't a spontaneous drive, at least not entirely. She appeared to have some destination in mind, yet she never told anyone exactly where she intended to go. Not her friends, not her professors, not her family. As the day continued, she withdrew money from an ATM. Surveillance footage captured her during the transaction. Today, those images are among the last confirmed recordings of Maura Murray. After withdrawing cash, she purchased alcohol, wine, vodka, other beverages. Investigators later recovered receipts documenting the purchase. Again, questions emerged. Was she planning a vacation? A getaway? A retreat from personal stress? Or was there another reason entirely? No one knows. What investigators do know is that at some point that afternoon, Maura packed belongings into her car and left Amherst. She drove north. For hours, she traveled through New England's winter landscape. Snow covered the ground. Temperatures were cold. The roads grew increasingly rural. As darkness approached, she entered New Hampshire. And slowly, the mystery began. At approximately 7:27 p.m., residents living near Route 112 heard a loud noise. A vehicle had crashed near a sharp curve in the road. The car had struck a snowbank. When nearby residents looked outside, they saw a young woman standing beside the vehicle. That woman was Maura Murray. What happened during the next few minutes would become one of the most analyzed timelines in modern true crime. A local resident contacted emergency services. Another witness, a school bus driver returning home, stopped to check on the driver. He later told investigators that he spoke directly with Maura. According to his account, she appeared shaken but conscious. He offered assistance. She refused. He suggested calling the police. Again, she declined. According to the witness, Maura claimed she had already contacted roadside assistance. The bus driver found this unusual. Cell phone coverage in the area was extremely limited. Still, she insisted she was fine. Eventually, the witness returned home and called authorities himself. That decision may have created one of the most important windows in the entire case. Because from that moment forward, the clock was ticking. The timeline becomes remarkably narrow. Only a few minutes separated the witness encounter from the arrival of police. And yet somehow, during that brief period, Maura vanished. When officers reached the crash scene, they found the vehicle, but not its driver. The Saturn sat abandoned beside the road. Inside were personal belongings. Outside, there was no obvious sign of where she had gone. The young woman who had been standing beside the car only moments earlier was gone. Completely. Police immediately began assessing the area. At first, it may have seemed like a simple case. Perhaps the driver had left on foot. Perhaps she feared getting into trouble. Perhaps she was seeking help. But as minutes turned into hours, and hours turned into days, those explanations became less convincing. The surrounding area was covered with snow. Searchers expected to find footprints, a trail, some indication of direction. Instead, they found almost nothing. And that was only the beginning. Because the closer investigators looked at the evidence, the stranger the case became. The abandoned vehicle contained clues. Some pointed in one direction, others pointed in another. Witness accounts raised additional questions. And as search teams prepared to comb the surrounding wilderness, a troubling possibility began to emerge. What if Maura Murray had not simply walked away? What if something had happened during those missing minutes? And if so, who was responsible? In the days ahead, searchers would launch an extensive effort to find answers. Dogs would be brought in. Helicopters would search from above. Investigators would examine every available clue. But despite all of those efforts, the mystery would only deepen. Because the next discovery would challenge nearly every assumption about where Maura Murray went after the crash. As news of Maura Murray's disappearance spread, search teams moved quickly. Tom was critical. If she had wandered into the freezing wilderness, every passing hour reduced her chances of survival. Investigators began searching the roads, nearby properties, and wooded areas surrounding the crash site. The landscape was unforgiving. Dense forest stretched for miles. Snow covered the ground. Temperatures dropped well below freezing at night. If Maura had left the road and entered the woods, searchers expected to find evidence. Footprints, disturbed snow, broken branches, anything. Instead, they found almost nothing. And that absence would become one of the most puzzling aspects of the entire case. Within days, trained search teams combed the area extensively. Helicopters scanned from above. Ground crews moved through the woods. Tracking dogs were brought in. Yet despite these efforts, there was no confirmed sign of Maura Murray. No clothing, no backpack, no personal belongings, no trace. Then investigators introduced one of the most debated pieces of evidence in the case. A scent tracking dog was given an item believed to carry Maura's scent. The dog followed a trail away from the crash site. But then something strange happened. The scent appeared to stop abruptly along the roadway, as if Maura had gotten into another vehicle, or as if something interrupted the trail entirely. For years, supporters of the abduction theory pointed to this detail. If the scent truly ended on the road, perhaps Maura accepted a ride. Perhaps she entered a vehicle willingly, or perhaps she was forced into one. However, Critics argued the dog tracking occurred after a delay and under less than perfect conditions. Could the result have been misleading? Even today, investigators disagree, and that would become a recurring theme throughout the case. Almost every clue seemed to generate more questions than answers. Attention soon turned to the vehicle itself. Inside, investigators found several items that attracted scrutiny. Among them were containers of alcohol. Evidence suggested some alcohol may have spilled inside the vehicle during the crash. This led some investigators to speculate that Maura may have been drinking before the accident. Others cautioned against drawing conclusions. The available evidence was far from definitive, yet the possibility raised another question. If Maura feared police involvement after the crash, could that explain why she left the scene? At first glance, the theory seemed reasonable. After all, she had recently been involved in another accident. She may have worried about legal consequences. She may have panicked, and she may have decided to leave before officers arrived. But if she left voluntarily, where did she go? And why has no confirmed trace of her ever been found? As investigators continued examining the vehicle, another detail emerged. A rag had been placed inside the tailpipe. At first, the discovery seemed bizarre. Why would someone stuff a rag into a car's exhaust pipe? The answer came from Maura's father. According to him, he had previously advised her to place a rag in the tailpipe if the vehicle began producing excessive smoke. The explanation addressed one mystery, but not the larger one. Why was Maura driving a vehicle with mechanical problems into a remote region during winter? Again, there were no clear answers. As weeks passed, investigators began examining possible theories. The first theory was perhaps the simplest: exposure. According to this explanation, Maura left the crash scene and entered the surrounding wilderness. Disoriented, afraid, possibly impaired, she became lost and eventually succumbed to the elements. Supporters of this theory point out that many missing person cases end this way. People often underestimate how quickly cold weather can become deadly. The terrain surrounding the crash site was vast. A body could potentially remain undiscovered for years. But there were problems. Searchers found no clear evidence that Maura entered the woods. No footprints leading away from the road. No obvious trail. No confirmed location where she may have traveled. For many observers, those missing signs are difficult to ignore. The second theory suggests voluntary disappearance. According to this idea, Maura intentionally left her life behind. Her unusual preparations, the false email about a family death, the search for lodging, the packed belongings, all could suggest a planned departure. Some speculate she wanted a temporary escape. Others believe she intended something more permanent. Yet this theory also faces major challenges. Over the years, no verified financial activity has surfaced. No confirmed sightings. No proven evidence that she established a new identity. Maintaining such a disappearance for more than 2 decades would be extraordinarily difficult, especially under intense public scrutiny. The third theory is stranger, and for many, more disturbing: abduction by a passing motorist. The timeline supports the possibility. Only a few minutes passed between the witness encounter and police arrival. A vehicle traveling along Route 112 could have encountered Maura during that narrow window. Perhaps she accepted a ride. Perhaps she believed the driver was helping her. Perhaps she had little choice. Supporters of this theory often point to the scent trail ending near the roadway. They argue it suggests she entered another vehicle. Critics respond that there is no direct evidence identifying any suspect. No witness reported seeing an abduction. No vehicle was conclusively connected to the disappearance. Once again, the evidence remains frustratingly incomplete. Then there is the fourth theory: local foul play. Over the years, various individuals living near the crash site have attracted attention. Rumors spread. Allegations emerged. Internet investigators examined numerous possibilities. But despite years of scrutiny, no theory has produced sufficient evidence to solve the case. No arrest has been made. No charges have been filed. And no suspect has been conclusively linked to Maura's disappearance. As time passed, the case evolved beyond a missing person investigation. It became a cultural phenomenon. Documentaries explored the mystery. Podcasts dedicated entire seasons to the case. Online communities spent years analyzing maps, timelines, witness statements, and investigative records. Every detail was dissected, every theory debated. Yet despite countless hours of discussion, the central question remained unchanged. What happened to Maura Murray after the crash? Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the case is how ordinary it began. A college student driving alone, a minor traffic accident, a brief conversation with a concerned witness. Nothing about those events seemed extraordinary, and yet they marked the beginning of one of the most enduring mysteries in modern America. Today, more than 20 years later, investigators continue to receive tips. Family members continue searching for answers, and the case remains open. Somewhere within the evidence, there may be a clue that has been overlooked, a detail that appears insignificant, a memory someone never shared, a witness who never came forward. History has shown that cold cases can be solved decades later. Sometimes all it takes is one new piece of information, one person willing to speak, one discovery hidden in plain sight. Until then, the final moments of Maura Murray's known journey remain frozen in time. A dark road, a damaged vehicle, a witness offering help, and a young woman standing beside her car. Then, within minutes, she was gone. No confirmed destination, no verified sighting, no explanation, just a mystery that refuses to disappear, and a question that still echoes through the forests of New Hampshire. What happened to Maura Murray? Because somewhere between that crash and the arrival of police, the trail ended. And for more than 2 decades, no one has been able to find where it began again.